think I'm gonna stick with these like 30-ish minute uh, sections. They seem to be sort of working well with the scene transitions. I do a couple a night and then see how long that takes me. Alright, so we're going to find cell service. Cameron presses up tightly against Devon's side, breathing in the comforting scent of his cologne. Cam's show of confidence is mostly diminished at this point, especially as they're passing the motel. The coyote has to remind himself why it is that he insisted on doing this when Devitt offered a perfectly reasonable, slightly exhausting alternative. Being exhausted is preferable to PTSD. But Cameron could sense the bear beginning to treat him in a way that he didn't like. Talking to him like he was fragile, like the slightest touch could tip him over where he'd shatter on the asphalt. He wants to prove that he can deal with this. Which is why he has to smirk at himself right now, because he definitely wouldn't have made it this far if Dev weren't by his side. Right now the bear has a steely grip on Cameron's palm, making it clear that he isn't letting go. Meanwhile, their free paws hold their phones, checking every now and then for a signal. Anything yet? No. Wouldn't we get signal at the same time anyway? Well, I assume I'll get it first. Oh, because mine's not an android? Yup. Only I had the brain of an engineer to figure out how to work one. Actually, maybe I should turn mine off and let you search for a signal. That came out weird. Actually, maybe I should turn mine off and let you search for a signal. We should keep some battery life in one of our phones, just in case. Oh, yeah, good idea. Your battery probably died before we found service anyway. Cameron turns his phone off while Dev looks on. I wouldn't worry too much about it, though. It's not like we're lost in the woods or something. And I let, like, 3 people know where we were going. We're gonna be fine no matter what, babe. Famous last words, if I've ever heard them. Right up there with, here goes nothing, and I think I took too much. Yeah, right. Our last words are gonna be, holy shit, we lived to 100. I'm pretty sure I already screwed my chances at that with all the drugs I did. Along with eating fudge cakes for lunch whenever I'm at work. Seriously, Cam? Hey, it's in the vending machine right next to my cubicle. Well, we're changing that as soon as we get back. How are you gonna do that aside from stalking me at work? I'll make you lunch. They're gonna have us start working from home on Monday, remember? I'll have plenty of time. Hell, I'd be surprised if they don't start making you work from home soon. We'll be like co-workers. Ha! Bad chance. They don't give a shit about our health there. Well, we'll see either way. You'll be living to 110, so you'll have plenty of time to think up your famous last words. Cameron has to wonder if their meandering conversation is purposeful on Dev's part, if only to distract him from what's across the road. Either way, the coyote is thankful for it. Only if you make it there with me. About 15 minutes later, Cameron starts to become a bit more agitated. They're on a dirt road at this point, and every now and then they walk past crumbling structures of what used to be houses and trailers. You think the cell service stopped working since you read about it? I don't know. They said it's pretty sporadic. Who said this exactly? The paranormal forum peeps. I hope they're trustworthy. They are, or at least they have no reason to lie. I think paranormal gives people incentive to lie, especially if they're not gifted. Sure, but we're talking about cell phone service, not ghosts. Could also be a scheme by those crazy locals to lure their victims into town. You're joking, but I know you're still worried about that, so I'll just point out that it's highly unlikely because that would leave too much of a paper trail. Not that worried, especially now that we've made it this far and nothing... Oh, shit! What? Damn it, I just had a bar for a split sec. The bear waves the phone around over his head, spinning in a slow circle. The hell, Dev? You scared me. Sorry, babe. Anyway, I think it came from this direction. Dev indicates a rather large grouping of trees off the side of the road that forms a bit of a miniature forest. Of course. Why does it have to be the creepiest thing in sight? You want to hang back while I check it out? No? Is that a question? Cameron doesn't respond, instead sliding his pawn to the one Dev's offering, and they start making their way through the sagebrush. Oh god, imagine all the ticks we're picking up. Don't worry, babe. I'll comb through all your fur when we get out of here. Want me to carry you? I'm fine. Alright, just don't think about all the tarantulas and scorpions. You suck so much ass. Your ass is the only ass I... Dev grunts in a heavy, bearish way as Cameron wraps his arm around his neck and lifts his feet off the ground, forcing Dev to bridle carry him. Chuckling, Dev carefully makes his way through the rough terrain while the coyote awkwardly keeps his feet held high so they don't brush the sage. Dev finally lowers the coyote near the edge of the forest, and they stand there, looking into the blackness. Cameron can only see the branches outline against the moonlight, but otherwise it's almost like looking into a void. The feeling of emptiness is emphasized by the sudden quiet desert around them. So I've got like one bar, data isn't working. You know, trees would make it harder to get a signal. Can you make a call? Well, I can't open my assurance app, so I don't know what the preferred towing companies are, and just sort of realizing that most probably wouldn't come out here anyway, since Flake Road doesn't technically exist anymore. Flake Road? Something like that. I'm sure it's not that. So we're not getting towed out, and you don't even know the name of the road we crashed on. Are you saying we're stuck here? Like, really stuck? Well, my Jeep probably is, not us. The highway's still within walking distance, remember? I'm such an idiot. I can't believe I got us in this mess. Hey, I don't give a shit about my Jeep. Besides, I just got an idea. Dev taps on his phone a few times, then puts it up to his ear, but only for a few seconds before he scowls. What? Call dropped, but it rang for a sec. We are so dead. I've killed us. Oh, stop it, honey. I'll try texting. Who are you texting? An old friend of ours. Who? Damn it, I swear the bar keeps disappearing every time I try to send. Try some different angles. Dev is hunched over his phone, tapping away. Cameron just sighs, letting Dev do whatever it is he's doing. Despite the bear's attempt to placate him, the coyote knows that they both know that this is his fault. Why don't you just tell me what a stupid, idiot piece of shit I am? Cameron doesn't want to admit it, even in his mind, but one thing he liked about Dylan was that he didn't sugarcoat things for the coyote. He'd tell him when he was an idiot, either with words or fists. Coyote turns his attention back to the forest, staring into the dark. Dev doesn't know anything about him and Dylan, and Cameron sure as hell isn't gonna tell him. Especially that sometimes he was the one to swing first. He always lost, but the few hits he'd land always felt worth it. That would be a real treat for you, Dev. Not only is your boyfriend crazy, he's violent too. Does he even know you at all? A chill goes up Cameron's spine. That didn't feel like his own thoughts, even though it came from inside his head. Cameron moves closer to Devin, rubbing his arms. Oh, just send, damn it. Devin, Just a sec, hon. You already went through. Just gotta confirm some things with him. The void seems to get bigger, and even though he wants to look away, Cameron can't. He knows he's sensing again, even though he isn't meaning to. I don't know what it was. That's what really bothers me about it. I think I could handle something like a ghost, but not something like that. So it was just me and my wife taking a walk through an old forest like we always did, then, I don't know, I just got this weird feeling and everything went real quiet. Then this voice started, a man's voice, but it was kind of eerie, like it wasn't real. Hard to explain, but it was like it was an electronic thing, a machine. It started yelling at us and all this in this sort of playful way, like it was making fun of us or taunting us. It said things like, "The devil walks beside you, and I'm taking you to hell." Weird crap like that. It's coming from the tops of the trees, and you could kind of hear it go up and down and come closer like it was swinging through the branches. Yeah, it scared us because it didn't make sense. The voice, where it was coming from, what it was saying, none of it made sense, and that's the scary part. So we ran, and then it said some nasty things about my wife, so I picked her up and ran as fast as I could. Later, she told me she saw it over my shoulder in the trees. I had a hard time explaining it, which I understand because I can't explain it all, but she said it was a shadow. A shadow person that was moving through the branches. She said light bent in a weird way around its body, like it was encased in a glass globe or something. She hasn't said much else about it. She doesn't like talking about it, neither do I. I'm only telling you because I feel like there needs to be a record of it somewhere. It just feels wrong to go out of this life without, I don't know, letting people know that unexplainable stuff happens to a lot of people, and I hope we figure out why. And this might not be important, but I had dreams afterward where I'd be in that forest, and this shadow creature would come prowling out in the open. And then sounds would come out from where its mouth would be. I'd hear a young man screaming for help, all distorted like it was recorded on a tape. And then there'd be this high-pitched laughter. Shit! Ah! Did you hear that? That laugh? Yeah, it sounded like some drunk dude kind of far away. You screaming is what made me scream. It was like a cackle, like a cartoon witch or something. It was right next to us. I've heard it before. Well, I wouldn't say it was like a witch. It was kind of high-pitched, I guess, but again, it was pretty distant. I think we should go. Why? I think it's just like a drunk hick or something. I'm almost done messaging Artie. Something bangs like a screen door swinging closed, not very far away. Who's that squealing? That you, Duke? Got me a 12 gauge right here, then make you squeal twice as loud as you were snooping around my property again. Dev's voice drops to a whisper. Holy shit. Then, before Cam can fully absorb exactly what's happening, Dev is pulling him along, running full tilt through the sagebrush, toward the road and back toward Lake Emma. Devin's feet ache from the plethora of rocks he trampled on, the tough pads on the underside feeling almost torn up from the rough terrain. He's thankful, though, if only for the fact that he hadn't run himself and Cameron into a cactus. Dev? Cameron's voice jerks with every running step. We're almost there. Dev huffs and puffs for air, now aware that he's a bit more out of shape than he realized. He hadn't run in earnest for at least a few years. Dev, we're out of the town. Bear slows down now that his stuck jeep is in sight, and he finally lets go of Cameron's paw before doubling over to rest his paws on his knees, wheezing. Oh, fuck. Give me a minute. Jesus, are you okay? It sounds like you're dying. Ugh. Dev. My fucking thigh is cramping like a motherfucker. Holy shit. Dev's large rear hits the ground with a thump as he reaches down to massage the back of his thigh. Oh, thank God. What? Lay on your back. Before Devin can even follow the directions, Cameron takes the bear's right leg and slowly lifts it up, making Devin spasm as the cramping muscle is slowly stretched out. Oh, fuck. This is what I get for not running since, like, college. Cam gently rocks the leg back and forth. You ran since then. Remember that stupid company triathlon thing we did where you carried me on your back and ran across a soccer field? Despite the light conversation, Dev sees Cam looking over his shoulder toward the town, like he's waiting for a mob of hillbillies to come raging up the road. Man, I told you, Dev. People here are psycho. Dev grunts as Cameron stretches his leg back again. I think he wasn't being serious, but yeah, you were right. All the more reason to get you the fuck out of here. Dev finally pulls his foot back, gingerly getting to his feet while continuing to rub at his thigh. Ugh. Never had a cramp so painful. I guess I'm getting old. Take it easy next time. You were more scared than I was. You said yourself he was just a drunk hick. You forgot the part where he's got a shotgun. Yeah, I'd be more surprised if he didn't have one. Do you think he's gonna come looking for us? We're not that hard to find out here. Not like he thought you were some other hick. I think we're fine. I suppose you can put trailer trash in the same category as hick, so that makes sense. We can keep an eye out for right now, though, just in case. Who did you say you were texting again? Artie, from college. He just happened to be up and he's still living in Mesa. Said he'd drive out right away, so he could be here in like 3 hours. Huh. Why Artie, though? I don't know. He was at the top of my contacts list, and I knew he still lived in the States, so I gave it a shot. Give us a ride at least, I guess. He's got one of those massive trucks, so he might be able to pull us out. His last message said he'd be here in 3 hours or less. Well, I guess that's not bad. As long as we're out of here by morning. I don't want you getting caught out in the heat all day. We got a shit ton of water, and if I need to cool down... Devin waves his paw at the lake. Cameron stares at the lake, seeming to think, then looks back at Dev. Listen, while we were in the forest, I don't know, I didn't see anything, but I think I did some light touch sensing. The right way. Dev's upbeat mood disappears in an instant. What? Why would you do that? Well, it kind of just happened, and I made sure not to interact or anything. It was just fine, at least for the most part. What I heard was creepy. Well, okay, well, now I'm gonna tell you to be careful again, because I don't want a repeat of what happened in the motel. Well, like I said, I couldn't exactly help it. Anyway, do you know about a shadow person in the forest that spoke with a distorted electronic voice? Devin is caught off guard. He knows Cameron is trying to take the focus off the fact that he's still messing around with the supernatural in a dangerously supernatural place. But he also knows exactly what Cameron is referring to. The chapter in Haunted Echo, titled Entities of Static, described exactly that, and in the thick of trying to figure out whom to call, he hadn't realized that was the forest. Dev's surprise must be pretty obvious as Cameron grins. No way, am I right? Cameron's sudden joyous reaction surprises the bear. Well, yeah, you're right. Can you believe this? Sorry, I don't know why I'm happy, it's just... There's a fucking reason for me being the way I am. Can't deny it anymore, it's just hard to explain that kind of thing. It's hard to explain, but that kind of thing changes my entire life, Cam's bottom lip trembles with emotion, and Dev shakes off his feeling of unease, drawing him into a hug. Come here. I know what you mean, baby. Well, I don't personally know, but I wanted you to feel that way for a long time. I'm really happy for you. I feel like I can do something. I don't know, maybe even help people with this. Cameron's voice is muffled against Dev's chest. Oh, sure, of course. Let's just find a better place than here, okay? Dev nuzzles Cameron reassuringly, but the coyote doesn't answer, and even though that bothers the bear, he doesn't press the issue, just wanting Cameron to feel happy for now. Cameron sits in the trunk of the Jeep, legs hanging out over the edge, dangling towards the ground that's further away than usual due to the tilt. Meanwhile, he fiddles with his old acoustic guitar that had been stashed away in the Jeep for at least a year, tuning it slowly. He hadn't even remembered it was here, and he was there until they'd folded down the seats for a place to try and sleep. He'd last played it at Devin's parents' house because they wanted to hear him perform, and he just left it there in the Jeep afterwards. He hadn't had a reason to play it since. The rest of the night, or early morning really, hadn't been terrible. Dev was easily comfortable, the hard surface not all that different from his side of the mattress, which was rock hard compared to Cameron's much squishier foam. He had tossed and turned until Dev finally pulled him in to lay his head on the bear's stomach. The soft, warm surface enough to lull Cameron into a dozing state of consciousness while Dev snored loudly. He'd gotten used to the snoring after all these years and now found it comforting rather than annoying. It was a good night, considering the circumstances. Dev had been unsure about sleeping in the tilted Jeep at all because it gave him a bad feeling. He also had a bad feeling about Cameron going back to the motel with him, so he'd left him here alone while the bear gathered up the rest of their stuff. 5 hours had passed since Artie tested Devon, so the bear had been getting antsy about that as well. They'd had a bit of an argument, and Cameron only agreed to stay behind when Dev promised not to go back to the forest to text Artie again. Now Cameron sits here moping, the feeling of a lopsided relationship returning. I suck at guitar. He mumbles to himself quietly out of habit, knowing people didn't like hearing it since he was good enough, which had been his goal. All of his singer-songwriter idols played guitar and he'd wanted to be just like them. He'd forced himself to learn to become good enough, with all the awkward fingerings, the constant tuning, and the pain of holding down steel strings with his finger pads, even after he built up calluses. That's how he described guitar in general. A pain. Preferred piano, and that's what he used to write all of his music. But the devastatingly sad men of the 90s Northwest indie music scene didn't play piano, they played guitar. Because they were also rugged and tough, molded by the logging towns they originated from. Turns out that one's image is just as important in indie as it is in pop, despite the former trying to convince itself it isn't. So Cameron had tried to conform to that, and in the end, it hadn't mattered. The hours and hours dedicated to learning the instrument through high school and college now felt wasted. Still, the feeling of the instrument is familiar in his paws, even if his fingers are already getting sore. He tries to think of one of his less embarrassing songs, one of the ones where he wasn't just wearing the influence of cloudy, dreary northwestern cities on his sleeve, even though that's where he's from. He tried and failed to duplicate their poetic and opaque lyricism. Instead, he found himself slipping back again and again to the style of his own generation. Those idols of the 90s wove lyrics that forced the listener to delve into something complex, to find meaning in the metaphors and symbolism. Singer-songwriters born in the 90s, like himself, presented their lyrics in a more literal, honest way that often describes specific situations with seemingly nothing hidden. To Cameron, it's two sides of the same coins. Instead of discovering meaning and complexity, it's about discovering complexity and simplicity. He sighs, deciding it's tuned well enough. He glances up, making sure Dev isn't heading back before playing. He's badly out of practice, but he starts to slowly warm up. Cameron sings quietly, almost under his breath. This particular song got the attention of an independent label on the West Coast after one of their scouts heard it on the college radio station. They'd signed him in his junior year of college. Looking back, it was the high point of his life. Dev had celebrated in earnest, happily telling him that he'd make more money than he himself ever would. But what Cameron didn't realize was that even after being signed, he could still be dropped without releasing any of his music. After what was probably the lowest point in his life, they did just that. Dropped over text message, with his agent saying the demos he'd made in the studio weren't up to their quality standard. That hurt a lot, because he knew it was true. He'd been nervous the whole time, and his output wasn't even close to what he was capable of. He tried to comfort himself with the idea that most musicians go it alone these days. His own postings on the internet barely got more than a few dozen listens. And he finally realized that he was in it for the wrong reason. His peers just liked playing music, throwing stuff into the ether, whether anyone heard it or not. Cameron needed an audience to stay motivated, to be famous, so in a way, they fucking deserved it. At least Devin never brought it up. Cameron stops playing, having seen brownish fur out of the corner of his eye. He thinks it's Dev and immediately feels his face flush, freezing and just sitting there. This is why he didn't play or sing in a serious way these days. Now it just feels like showing off a skill that he was never really skilled at in the first place. But after a while, he doesn't hear anything. No voice, no footsteps, and biting through his embarrassment, Cam looks up the road where he'd been certain that his boyfriend had been watching him. Dev? The silence is heavy and thick. Weird feeling, and everything went real quiet. Cameron stares up the empty road, the feeling of unease growing until he finally shoves his guitar to the side and pulls out his phone, tapping on a mindless gaming app to distract himself. Nope. Not doing this again, not right now. Even though the road remains empty, and even though the sun shines brightly above, illuminating everything around him, the feeling of what is becoming a very familiar dread continues to grow. And that light shining down on everything changes, shifting to a more golden glow. What the hell is going on? Cameron had a few bad trips in the past, shrooms being the worst, and that was what gave him his first panic attack. In a strange way, this feels very similar. Please, not now. I have control, and I'm saying not now. No control. Shit! That voice, that feeling, it instantly made all the fur on the back of his neck stand up. Cameron starts walking up the road toward Echo, just under a mile away. Dev, come back now, please. The panic creeps up his neck like he's drowning. Till last night, he hadn't had a panic attack in over 2 years. Now it's like his brain has relearned that spiraling process of grasping for air that's readily available, but still feels out of reach. He fights the urge, counting, trying to remember the pace of Dev's steady breaths. And he wanted to reject the idea that he needed Dev to face his fears. Doesn't he know how to handle this? How to do it safely? Cameron also knows that running to Dev will only make things worse for his boyfriend. Did he want to stress him out even more? The coyote stops, then turns around slowly. Just like that, the feeling of panic and terror slowly fade away to be replaced by a feeling of purpose. Something solid. Something resolute in its existence. Something that's already happened. Nothing can be done to change it. A feeling of acceptance. Cameron's walk slows to a more measured pace, mirroring someone just outside of his view. In another place? No, in the same exact place, just in a different time. Cameron knows what's happening, and he questions what he's about to do, but with this new feeling of calm assuredness, the coyote decides to let it happen. Dev didn't want him doing this because he's had a change of heart, but so is Cameron, and this is his choice to make. So he lets it happen. And he senses this person. A girl. A feline. Walking just like him. Years and years ago. She tries to keep her sobs quiet, walking along the road by the lake. She'd been looking forward to this for 2 months. She'd saved up money from babysitting jobs to buy her own dress, her own fake jewelry, and her makeup. Her father had found the makeup a week ago and threw it away, telling her only bad things happened to girls who wore makeup. Even then, she'd still had the dance to look forward to. But now James, her ex from last year, had ruined it. He'd shown up drunk, proposed to her, then cussed out her new boyfriend, whom she'd only been seeing for a month now until he left. At least now she's glad she doesn't have the makeup on with how wet her eyes are. This had been the last dance of the year at Echo High, and she's worried she's going to graduate with no boyfriend at all, and no money to go anywhere. Lost in her thoughts, she notices fast, pounding footsteps only seconds before it happens. Before it happens. She sees James as it happens. She realizes what's happening in that same moment. Knowing him, this is actually something she expected. And in that moment, she decides that maybe this is for the best. Cameron? Lost in the vision, Cameron feels himself recoil from something touching him. Cameron loses his balance, windmilling his arms comically, and he has a split second to recognize Dev. The bear has his paw out like he'd been resting on the coyote's arm. The look of shock is mirrored on his boyfriend's face before he goes over the edge and straight into the lake. Cameron! The coyote expects to go under and stay under just like the girl from Echo High School. But a jolt goes through his body as his rear lands on a rocky surface, just a foot underwater. And Cameron cries out loudly. Fuck! Cameron looks up to see Dev getting ready to jump in. I'm fine. At first, Cameron is just embarrassed, like he got caught doing something he shouldn't, which he knows is the case in Dev's mind. It's not as deep as it used to be. What? As he climbs out with Dev's help, though, that embarrassment changes to anger. The coyote grunts and snarls quietly as he automatically starts stripping off his clothes, his plaid shirt and jeans sticking to his soggy fur. Dev hovers over him, trying to help, but mostly getting in the way. Dev, you have a list of people who died here, right? What? What are you talking about? You just fell into the lake. Stop talking about this shitty town and let me make sure you're... Oh, that's real rich coming from you. I've been saying that to you for the past 5 years, and yet here we are. So no, I won't stop. Give me the list or I'll just look it up myself. Dev glares, making himself look big, but Cameron doesn't budge even though in that moment, he realizes his phone got wet. And he can only hope that it's still going to work after this. After a few seconds, the bear deflates. Please, I just want to be out of here. I'll do whatever you want afterwards. Let's just go home first. That cools Cameron's outrage for the time being, never having seen Dev look so defeated. We will go home, and I'm sorry I'm being like this, but you have to understand that this is changing everything for me. I just need this for a little bit, okay? Okay, but I'm not leaving your side until we're out of this town, okay? Didn't I tell you this was a bad idea from the very start? Cameron tries to lighten the mood a bit, not liking the conflicts they're having on this little trip. They hardly had any before coming here. Now they have such a different ideas of what they should be doing. It's like they're in a tug of war. Dev takes out his phone, bringing up the document he'd been using to map out the supernatural happenings and history of Echo. So, it was a girl, teenager, Bobcat, from like the 50s, I think? Student from Echo High School. Dev raises his brow, scrolling slowly on his phone, then he looks back up. Yeah, June 1954. An 18-year-old Bobcat drowns in the lake in what is thought to be a suicide. So the fucker got away with it? Who? How does your tail feel, by the way? Dev is running his paw along his tail, feeling out the vertebrae. Cameron finds the bear's disinterest in all this more and more irritating, especially now that he's found what feels like his purpose. He can help, somehow. Dev hits a bruised spot on his tail and the coyote winces before shoving his paw away. No, not now, Dev. Listen. Your ex-boyfriend killed her. I saw him run up and push her into the lake. Did you have to experience that? Do you feel okay? Dev, I'm not important here. This is about someone who got murdered and some piece of shit who got away with it. First of all, don't call yourself unimportant. You're still alive, and you need to keep it that way by not falling into lakes because of these awful visions. I need to tell our family, or at least someone, so people know the truth. Devin frowns deeply at the coyote. Listen, babe. I know you can see things and that I can't and all, but I gotta be honest and say that no one's gonna care. They're dead. That girl and more than likely her ex, too. Short-sighted as all hell, Dev. He could definitely still be alive, having lived a full life after murdering someone. She might have siblings who are still alive, or I don't know. I think someone probably gives enough of a shit to want to know. And then what? You go up to them and tell them you're psychic and that you had a vision of their loved one being murdered? Besides, I wouldn't be surprised if everyone knew what happened. A lot of times they do, there just isn't always enough evidence. Cameron feels his face get hot, glaring at the asphalt. You wanted me to do this, and you wanted answers. Why are you holding me back now? Because I'm terrified right now. Of this town, of the ghosts, of you getting hurt somehow, because with the rate things are going, that's what's probably gonna happen. I want to know where Lupita is, but she died because I made stupid mistakes. Can't have the same thing happen with you. Cameron's face gets hot again as he realizes Dev is about to cry and his resolve wavers. He starts to step forward to hold Dev like the bear had held the coyote so many times, but then the two of them look up to see a rather small sedan pulling up the road, a figure inside waving enthusiastically through the windshield. I think I'll pause it right there. That's a nice little break, I think. And then we meet person number 4, I guess. I guess we're counting Brian. Yeah. Next time, let's go.